The night Silas Brennan aimed his rifle at a marshal's chest, he wasn't thinking about the law. He was thinking about the 8-year-old girl bleeding in his kitchen, and the baby who'd stopped crying an hour ago. "You'll have to shoot me first," he told them. They didn't know what he'd lost 5 years before. They didn't know a broken man has nothing left to fear. But before we get there, before you subscribe and hit that notification bell and comment where you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels, let me tell you how it started. With a sound no one should hear in a blizzard. The cry of a dying child. The wind came at the cabin sideways, rattling windows, clawing at the roof. Montana winter, middle of nowhere, and Silas Brennan stood at the sink, washing a single plate because that's all he ever used anymore. 53 years old. Widower. The kind of alone that gets into your bones. He set the plate in the rack, picked up the cup. Through the window, nothing but white snow thick enough to bury a man standing up. Then he heard it. Faint, desperate, cutting through the storm like a knife. A child screaming. The cup hit the floor. Silas didn't remember grabbing his coat. Didn't remember opening the door, just found himself outside with the cold punching the air from his lungs. Wind tore at him. Snow blinded him. But that sound, Christ, that sound pulled him forward. "Help, somebody, help!" He fought through drifts up to his waist, following the voice. His fence line materialized out of the white. And there collapsed against the posts a small shape. A girl, maybe 8 years old, face covered in blood and ice. She was dragging something, pulling it with hands gone blue, and when she saw him, she didn't cry out in relief. She shoved the bundle toward him. "Please," she gasped. "Can you take him instead of me?" Silas stared. The bundle moved. A baby. He grabbed them both, the girl fighting him with what little strength she had left. "No. Take the baby. Leave me. Like hell." He lifted her. She weighed nothing. "Stop fighting, or we both die out here." She went limp. He ran. The cabin door slammed open, and he kicked it shut behind him, stumbling to the fireplace. Laid them both on the floor near the heat. The girl's eyes rolled back. The baby wasn't making a sound. Silas stripped the wet blanket away. Pressed his ear to the tiny chest. Heartbeat. Faint. Too slow. He wrapped the infant in dry wool, held him against his own body heat, rubbing the small back. Come on, damn you, breathe." The baby coughed. Once. Twice. Then screamed. Silas nearly laughed. He looked at the girl. She was watching him through one eye, the other swollen shut, a gash across her forehead still bleeding. "He okay?" Her voice barely there. "He's okay." She closed her eye, stopped fighting, let unconsciousness take her. Silas worked fast, peeled frozen clothes off her, wrapped her in blankets, carried her to the couch. The baby he laid in a drawer lined with towels, not perfect but warm. Then he knelt beside the girl and started cleaning wounds. She had scars, old ones, new ones, some still healing. Someone had been beating this child for a long time. His hands shook. He forced them still. She woke when he touched the gash on her forehead, flinched hard. "Easy. I'm not going to hurt you." She stared at him, deciding. Finally, "Eliza. That your name?" "Yeah. I'm Silas, your brother. Samuel." "Where are your parents?" "Eliza." "Dead." The word landed flat. No emotion. Just fact. Silas paused, cloth dripping pink. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. You didn't kill them." She looked at him with that one good eye. "But I know who did." Before he could respond, something pounded the door. 3 hard knocks. Eliza went rigid. All color drained from her face. "No," she whispered. "No, he found us." Silas grabbed the rifle above the mantel. "Get behind the couch. Don't come out." She scrambled off, clutching Samuel. Silas opened the door. A man stood there in an expensive coat, tall and broad-shouldered, smiling like they were old friends. Handsome in a cold way, eyes like chips of ice. Evening. The smile never wavered. Name's Oswin Fletcher. I'm looking for 2 children who ran away tonight. My niece and nephew. Their parents died recently tragic accident, and I'm their legal guardian now. Silas blocked the doorway. That's so. The girl's not well. Mentally, I mean. Makes up stories. She's put both their lives at risk running out in this storm. He shook his head all concern. I need to get them home before something terrible happens. She seemed clear-headed to me. The smile tightened. Sir, I don't know what she's told you. She told me you're coming for them, that's all. Then let me take them before they catch their death. Storm's too bad. They stay here tonight. Oswin's expression shifted. Just slightly, the mask slipping. I don't think you understand. Those are my children, my legal wards, my responsibility under the law. Under the law, Silas repeated. That how you see them, legal responsibility. That's the word the law uses, friend. I'm not your friend. Silas's hand tightened on the rifle. And those kids aren't going anywhere until morning. I'm not leaving without them. Yeah, you are. They stared at each other. Oswin took 1 step forward. Silas didn't move. You're making a serious mistake, Oswin said quietly. I have the law on my side. Papers signed by a judge. You have nothing. I have them, and they're terrified of you. The girl's a liar. Then why'd she drag a baby through a blizzard to get away from you? Oswin's jaw clenched. For a heartbeat, Silas saw murder in those cold eyes. Then Oswin stepped back, straightening his coat. I'll be back, with the marshal, and when I return you'll hand them over or you'll be arrested for kidnapping. He turned, paused. Enjoy your night, Mr. Brennan. It's the last peaceful one you'll have. He walked into the storm. Silas locked the door, turned. Eliza stood in the middle of the room. Samuel pressed to her chest, tears streaming down her face. He's going to kill us. Her voice broke. Just like he killed Mama and Daddy. Silas crossed to her, knelt, put his hands on her thin shoulders. Nobody's killing anybody. You're safe here. You don't know him. You don't know what he can do. I know what I can do. And I'm telling you right now that man doesn't get you. Not while I'm breathing. She searched his face, looking for the lie, didn't find one. She collapsed against him, sobbing. Silas wrapped his arms around her and the baby, both holding on while she shook apart. Why? She choked out. You don't even know us. Why would you do this? Silas closed his eyes, saw a small grave on a hillside, a headstone with his son's name. 5 years of silence, 5 years of wondering if he could have saved him. Because I know what it's like to lose everything, he said. And I'm not letting it happen again. Not to you. Not if I can stop it. Morning came cold and bright. Silas hadn't slept. He sat in his chair by the fire rifle across his lap, watching the door, watching Eliza on the couch, watching Samuel's tiny chest rise and fall. 1 breath. 2. 3. Still alive. He counted each one. When dawn broke, he made coffee, fried eggs and bacon. The smell woke Eliza. She jerked upright, panic in her eyes, then saw Samuel asleep in his makeshift crib and relaxed. Barely. He's fine, Silas said. Hungry. She nodded. He brought her a plate. She stared at it. When's the last time you ate? Don't remember. Eat. She tore into the food. No manners. Just survival. Silas watched her throat tight. This child had been starving. Slowly. Deliberately. Eliza. He kept his voice gentle. I need you to tell me what happened. All of it. The truth. She stopped chewing. Swallowed hard. You won't believe me. Try me. She set the fork down. When she spoke, her voice was flat, reciting facts like a court witness. Daddy worked the logging camps, Best man they had. Uncle Oswin owned the operation, owned half the county really. One day Daddy found something wrong in the books. Money missing. Big money. He confronted Uncle Oswin about it. She paused, took a breath. 2 days later, logs fell on him during a routine cut. Killed him instantly. Silas felt something cold settle in his gut. And your mother? Mama saw it happen. She started screaming it wasn't an accident. That the rigging was wrong. That someone cut the cables. Eliza's voice cracked. A week later, she fell down the stairs. Broke her neck. Jesus Christ. I saw her. At the bottom of the stairs. And I saw Uncle Oswin at the top. She touched the scar on her forehead. He told me accidents happen to people who talk too much. He's been reminding me ever since. Silas's hands clenched. And Samuel. Orphan trains pay good money for healthy babies. $500 I heard Uncle Oswin tell a man from Portland. $500 for my baby brother. Her eye, that one fierce, damaged eye, fixed on him. Last night he said he was taking Samuel in the morning. I waited until he was drunk, took Samuel and ran. I wasn't going to let him sell my brother like livestock. Before Silas could respond, horses approached. Multiple riders. Eliza went white as snow. Silas stood checking the rifle. Behind the couch. Now. She grabbed Samuel and disappeared. The knock came. Official. Hard. Silas opened the door. 3 men. Oswin Fletcher, looking fresh despite last night. A man wearing a marshal's badge, weathered and hard-faced. And a thin man in a suit carrying a leather folder. Mr. Brennan? The marshal's voice was flat, professional. I'm Marshal Boyd Garrett. This is Mr. Fletcher and Judge Morrison's clerk with legal guardianship papers. We're here for the Morrison children. They're not going with him. That's not your decision. It is when they're terrified of him. Marshal. Oswin cut in, his voice smooth. I told you. The girl's troubled. She's been spinning wild stories since her parents died. I've tried to help her, but she's dangerous to herself and to the baby. She says you killed her parents. The clearing went silent. Marshal Garrett's eyes sharpened. Oswin's smile froze, then reformed. That, Oswin said carefully, is exactly the kind of slander I've been dealing with. The girl is mentally unstable. We have medical documentation. He gestured to the clerk. The thin man opened his folder. Dr. Whitmore examined the girl 3 months ago. His assessment notes: severe delusions, paranoid ideation, and violent outbursts. He recommended institutionalization. That's a lie! The shout came from behind the couch. Eliza emerged, shaking Samuel clutched to her chest. Dr. Whitmore never examined me. Uncle Oswin paid him to write that. Sweetheart. Oswin's voice dripped concern. You see, Marshal, she doesn't even remember her own doctor visits. I remember him beating me when I asked about Mama. Eliza's voice cracked. I remember him locking me in the cellar when I cried. I remember him telling that man from Portland that Samuel was prime stock. The marshal looked at Oswin. Back to Eliza. His jaw worked. Mr. Fletcher, he said slowly, let me see those papers. Oswin handed them over. The marshal read. His face darkened. These are signed by Judge Morrison. Yes. The girl's grandfather. He agreed I was the best. Judge Morrison's been dead for 4 months. Silence. Oswin's face went carefully blank. There must be some mistake. No mistake. The marshal handed the papers back. These are forgeries. I can explain. You can explain to a judge. Garrett turned to his deputy. Take him. Marshal, you're making a terrible error. The error was yours. Forging legal documents. Possibly murder. We'll sort it out in town. He looked at Silas. These children stay with you until I can verify the girl's story. I'll be back in 3 days. If she's lying... She's not, Silas said. Garrett studied him. You better hope you're right. Because if you're harboring kidnapped children, I'll arrest you myself. Then arrest me. Because I'm not giving them back to him. The marshal's expression shifted. Something like respect. 3 days, Mr. Brennan. They left. Oswin went without a fight, but as he passed Silas, he leaned close. You just signed your death warrant, he whispered. Silas met his eyes. Get off my property. When they were gone, Silas bolted the door, turned. Eliza stood frozen. Samuel in her arms, staring at him. You really meant it, she whispered. You're really keeping us. I said I would. But why? Her voice broke. We're not yours. We're nothing to you. Silas crossed the room, knelt in front of her. This fierce, broken child who'd walked through hell to save her brother. You want to know why? He touched the scar on his son's grave marker every morning for 5 years. He thought about the wife who'd died of grief because he hadn't known how to save her. Because 5 years ago my boy got sick. Fever. He was 6 years old. I rode 2 days to get a doctor, but by the time I got back, his voice caught. He was gone, and my wife couldn't live with it. She followed him a month later. Eliza's eye filled with tears. I've spent 5 years wondering if I could have done something different, something more, and I can't bring them back. He put his hand on her shoulder. But I can help you. I can keep you safe, and maybe that's enough. You'd risk everything for us. I already lost everything once. I'm not afraid of losing it again. She set Samuel down carefully, then threw her arms around Silas's neck and sobbed. He held her, this stranger child who wasn't his daughter, who would never replace the son he'd lost, but who needed him just the same. You're safe here, he murmured. I promise. You're safe. Outside, snow began to fall again, and somewhere in town, Oswin Fletcher was making plans. But for now, for this one moment, there was warmth. There was food. There were 2 children who weren't alone anymore. And there was a broken man, learning that maybe, just maybe, broken things could still protect what mattered. That night, after Eliza finally slept, Silas stood at the window staring into darkness. 3 days. That's all he had before the marshal came back. 3 days to prove Eliza wasn't lying. 3 days to find evidence against a man who owned half the county. A man who'd already killed twice. Movement caught his eye. At the edge of the tree line, barely visible in the falling snow. Someone watching. Silas's hand went to the rifle. The figure didn't move. Just stood there, watching the cabin. Then vanished into the trees. Silas locked every window. Loaded every gun. Sat in his chair with the rifle across his lap. Behind him, Eliza murmured in her sleep. Don't let him take us, Papa. Papa. The word hit him like a fist to the chest. He turned. Looked at this child who'd already lost everything. This girl who'd chosen him, a stranger, to trust with her life and her brother's life. I won't, he whispered to the darkness. I won't let him touch you. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying with it the promise of violence. And Silas Brennan, broken, grieving alone for 5 years, finally had something worth fighting for again, even if it killed him. The first day passed in tense silence. Silas taught Eliza how to load the rifle just in case. She learned fast, her small hands steady, despite the weight of the weapon. Samuel slept most of the time wrapped tight in wool blankets, his breathing even and strong. That night, Silas found Eliza standing at the window again, staring into the dark. Can't sleep, he asked. He's out there. Her voice was flat. I can feel him watching. Silas stood beside her, scanning the tree line. Nothing moved, but that didn't mean she was wrong. If he comes back, I'll handle it. You don't understand. She turned to him, her good eye wide. Uncle Oswin doesn't do his own dirty work. He hires men, bad men, the kind who don't ask questions. How many men does he have? I don't know, 5, 6. They work the logging camps, but everyone knows they're really there to keep people quiet. She hugged herself. There was a man last year, Mr. Patterson. He said Uncle Oswin was cheating workers out of their pay. 2 days later, Mr. Patterson's house burned down, with him inside. Silas felt his jaw tighten. The marshal didn't investigate. The marshal gets paid by Uncle Oswin. Everyone does. She looked up at him. That's why I didn't go to the law. There is no law, not for people like me. There's law now. Marshal Garrett seems different. Maybe. Or maybe Uncle Oswin just hasn't paid him enough yet. Silas didn't argue. He'd seen corruption before, seen powerful men buy their way out of anything, but he'd also seen good men stand up when it mattered. The question was, which kind was Marshal Garrett morning came with unexpected visitors? Silas heard the wagon before he saw it, wheels crunching through frozen ground. He grabbed the rifle, but Eliza touched his arm. Wait, that's Mrs. Hollis. A woman climbed down from the wagon, tall and sturdy, wearing a practical dress and boots. She had gray hair pulled back tight and eyes that missed nothing. Behind her, a man followed, Mexican muscular with calloused hands and a weathered face. Silas opened the door. Mr. Brennan, the woman said. I'm Beatrice Hollis. I own the land west of here. This is Miguel Santos. He runs the logging crew that used to work for Oswin Fletcher. She paused. We heard about the children. Silas kept the rifle visible but not aimed. What about them? We came to help. Why? Miguel spoke up, his English accented but clear. Because Oswin Fletcher is a bastard and a murderer, and someone finally had the guts to stand up to him. He met Silas's eyes. That someone shouldn't have to stand alone. Beatrice nodded. May we come in? Silas stepped aside. They entered, and Beatrice's expression softened when she saw Eliza on the couch holding Samuel. Oh, honey. She crossed to the girl. I heard what happened. I'm so sorry about your mama and daddy. Eliza's face crumpled. You believe me? Of course I believe you. Your daddy was a good man, best logger I ever saw, and your mama? Beatrice's voice caught. She was my friend. She came to me 3 days before she died. Told me she was scared. Told me Oswin had killed her husband and was going to kill her next. She swallowed hard. I told her to go to the marshal. I told her the law would protect her. I was wrong. You couldn't have known, Eliza whispered. I should have. I should have helped her. But I was scared. Beatrice straightened. I'm not scared anymore. Miguel pulled a folded paper from his coat. I brought this. It's the logging camp ledger from 2 years ago, the real one before Oswin destroyed it. Shows him embezzling $70,000 from investors. Your father found it, Eliza. He gave me a copy for safekeeping the day before he died. Silas took the ledger, flipping through pages of neat handwriting and damning numbers. This is evidence. It's more than that, Miguel said. It's motive. If this gets to a judge, Oswin loses everything: his business, his reputation, probably his freedom. That's why he killed Eliza's father, and her mother when she started asking questions. The marshal needs to see this. The marshal won't do anything, Beatrice said bitterly. Oswin has him bought and paid for, or so everyone thinks. But maybe if enough of us stand together, show Garrett we're not afraid. A gunshot cracked the morning. Glass exploded. Beatrice screamed. Miguel hit the floor, pulling Eliza down with him. Silas dove for the window rifle coming up. Outside, 3 men on horses circled the cabin. They wore bandanas over their faces, but Silas recognized the build of the lead rider, Bull Hennigan, one of Oswin's enforcers. Send out the girl, Bull shouted. Or we burn you out. Silas fired. The shot went high intentionally, but close enough to make Bull's horse rear. The riders scattered, taking cover behind trees. How many bullets you got, old man? Bull called. We got all day. Miguel crawled to the back window, his own pistol drawn. 3 of them, maybe more in the trees. They're testing us, Silas said. Seeing if we'll break. Another shot. This one hit the door frame, splinters flying. Eliza whimpered. Samuel started crying. Beatrice gathered them both, moving to the safest corner. We need help, she said. If they burn the cabin? Ring the bell, Miguel interrupted. The old ranch bell out back. It'll carry for miles. The other ranchers will hear. Silas looked at him. Will they come? I don't know, but it's the only chance we've got. Silas made the decision. Cover me. He ran for the back door, while Miguel fired through the front window. Silas hit the snow, running zigzagging toward the old bell post. A shot kicked up dirt beside him. Another whined past his ear. He grabbed the rope and pulled. The bell rang out deep and clear, echoing across the valley. Once, twice, 3 times. The old signal the one ranchers used when they needed help. More shots. One hit the bell, making it clang. Silas dove behind a water trough and fired back. Saw one of the riders jerk, hit in the arm. The man howled and rode off. Bull cursed. Fall back! We're not getting paid enough for this. The riders retreated, but slowly, making it clear they weren't scared, just tactical. This ain't over, Brennan, Bull shouted. You just made things a hell of a lot worse for yourself. They vanished into the trees. Silas waited, rifle aimed, heart pounding. Minutes passed. Nothing. Miguel appeared at the back door. They're gone, for now. Silas lowered the rifle. His hands were shaking. Did the bell reach anyone? We'll know soon enough. They didn't have to wait long. Within an hour, riders appeared, 3 of them approaching cautiously. Silas recognized 2 Tom Fletcher, who ran cattle on the North Ridge, and Sarah Chen, who owned the general store in town. The third was a young man Silas didn't know. Tom dismounted first. Heard the bell. What happened? Oswin's men tried to drive me off, Silas said. Because I'm protecting 2 children he wants dead. Tom's face hardened. The Morrison kids? You know about them. Whole town knows. Word travels fast. He looked at the cabin. Oswin's been spreading poison, saying you kidnapped them, saying you're holding them hostage. That's a lie. I know. So do a lot of others. We remember what happened to John Morrison. And Catherine. Tom spat in the dirt. But people are scared. Oswin owns half the county. Cross him and you lose everything. Sarah spoke up. Not everyone's scared. Some of us are just tired of being afraid. She looked at Silas. You need supplies, food, medicine. I need witnesses, Silas said. People willing to stand up in front of a judge and tell the truth. Tom and Sarah exchanged glances. That's asking a lot, Tom said quietly. I know. Oswin will come after us. Probably. Tom rubbed his jaw, thinking. Finally. I'll do it. I'll testify. John Morrison saved my life 10 years ago when I got trapped in a rock slide. I owe him. And I owe his kids. Sarah nodded. Me too. Catherine Morrison was kind to me when I first came to town. Only person who was. I won't forget that. The young man stepped forward. Name's Danny Walsh. I worked for Oswin until last month when he beat one of my crew half to death for asking about back pay. I quit. Got nothing left to lose. Miguel appeared at the door. Then we make a stand. All of us. Strength in numbers. How many can we count on? Silas asked. Tom shook his head. Not many. Maybe a dozen if we're lucky. Oswin has 50 men on his payroll, and most of them would kill their own mothers for the right price. Doesn't matter, Beatrice said from the doorway. Sometimes a dozen good people are worth more than 50 bad ones. But Silas saw the worry in her eyes. 12 against 50. With 2 children caught in the middle. Those were terrible odds. That night they made plans. Miguel and Danny would ride to the surrounding ranches, quietly spreading word. Tom and Sarah would return to town, gather supplies, and gauge who might be sympathetic. Beatrice stayed at the cabin, insisting someone needed to help care for the children. Silas appreciated it. He wasn't good with children anymore, hadn't been since his son died. He could protect them, fight for them, but the simple things, feeding, changing, comforting, felt foreign now, like skills he'd forgotten. Eliza watched him struggle to warm milk for Samuel and finally took over. "It's okay," she said quietly. "I've been doing this for months. You shouldn't have to." "But I do." She tested the milk on her wrist, an adult gesture from a child's hand. "That's just how it is." Silas watched her feed her brother with practiced efficiency. This girl had grown up too fast, had been forced to become a mother when she should have still been playing with dolls. "When this is over," he said, "you'll get to be a kid again." Eliza looked at him with that one damaged eye. "I don't think I remember how." "Then I'll teach you. You know how to be a kid." "I had a son once. I remember some things." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "What was his name?" Silas's throat tightened. He never talked about this, not to anyone, not even to himself most days. "Thomas, Tommy. He was 6 when he died." "What was he like?" "Stubborn, curious, always asking questions." Silas smiled despite the pain. He wanted to know how everything worked, why birds flew, why water was wet, why the sky was blue. Drove me crazy sometimes. I bet he was smart. Smarter than me, that's for sure. What happened to him? Fever. Came on fast. By the time I realized how bad it was, by the time I got to town for a doctor, he stopped, swallowed. I was too late. Eliza reached out and touched his hand. Her fingers were small and cold. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Me too." "Is that why you're helping us, because of Tommy?" Silas met her eyes. "Partly, but also because it's the right thing to do. And because—" he paused, finding the words. "Because I've been dead inside for 5 years. And you two, you make me feel alive again. Even if it's scary. Even if it hurts." Eliza's face crumpled. She set Samuel down carefully and threw her arms around Silas's neck. "I'm glad we found you," she sobbed. "I'm so glad." Silas held her. This broken child who wasn't his daughter, who would never replace the son he'd lost, but who was starting to feel like family anyway. The marshal returned on the 3rd day, just like he'd promised. But he didn't come alone. Behind him rode a man in expensive clothes, carrying a leather satchel, a lawyer. And behind the lawyer, Oswin Fletcher, looking smug. Silas met them at the fence line, rifle in hand. Marshal Garrett dismounted. "Mr. Brennan, this is Theodore Chase, attorney for Mr. Fletcher. He's filed a complaint." "What complaint?" The lawyer stepped forward, pulling papers from his satchel. "My client is the legal guardian of Eliza and Samuel Morrison, appointed by their grandfather before his death. You are currently holding them against their will, which constitutes kidnapping under territorial law." "That's horseshit," Silas said. "Your client forged those papers." "The papers are legitimate," Chase said smoothly. "Judge Morrison did sign them 3 months before he died. The marshal verified it this morning with the county clerk." Silas looked at Garrett. The marshal's face was carefully neutral. "It's true," Garrett said. "The paperwork's legal, dated and filed properly. Then Judge Morrison signed them before he knew Oswin killed his son." "You have proof of that?" Chase asked. "Witnesses' evidence. I have a ledger showing embezzlement. I have people willing to testify. A ledger that could be forged. Witnesses with grudges against my client." Chase smiled. "Mr. Brennan, I admire your intentions, but you're fighting a losing battle. The law is clear. Those children belong to Mr. Fletcher." "The hell they do." Oswin spoke for the first time. "Marshal, I'm being patient here, but my niece and nephew need to come home. Now." Garrett looked at Silas. "I'm sorry, but unless you can prove abuse or neglect, I have to enforce the custody order." "Look at her face." Silas gestured to the cabin. "Those scars." "The girl is clumsy," Oswin said. "Prone to accidents. Dr. Whitmore's notes document. Dr. Whitmore's a liar getting paid to cover your crimes. Mr. Brennan, Garrett said quietly. You're not helping yourself. If you resist, I'll have to arrest you. Silas's hand tightened on the rifle. Behind him, the cabin door opened. Miguel stepped out armed, then Beatrice, then Tom Fletcher, and Danny Walsh. They formed a line behind Silas, weapons ready. You'll have to arrest all of us, Miguel said. Marshal Garrett's expression darkened. Don't do this. Don't make me. Make you what? Tom cut in. Do your job. Protect children instead of protecting the man who murdered their parents. You have proof John Morrison was murdered. I have proof. Oswin Fletcher is a thief and a liar, Miguel said, holding up the ledger. And I have testimony from 20 men who worked the camps and saw him order beatings, arsons, and worse. Chase laughed. Hearsay and accusations from disgruntled employees. That won't hold up in any court. Then let's find out, a new voice said. Everyone turned. A man rode into the clearing, tall, dark-skinned, wearing traditional Blackfoot clothing mixed with Western gear. He moved with quiet authority, and his horse responded to the slightest touch. Oswin's face went pale. What's he doing here? The man dismounted. My name is Running Bear. I speak for the Blackfoot Nation. He looked at Marshal Garrett. And I'm here to inform you that Eliza and Samuel Morrison have tribal blood through their mother, which means they fall under treaty jurisdiction, not territorial law. Silence. Chase recovered first. That's you can't possibly. Catherine Morrison was half Blackfoot, Running Bear said. Her mother was White Elk Woman, daughter of Chief Blackhorse. Under the Fort Laramie Treaty, any child with tribal blood can claim protection under tribal law. He pulled a document from his coat. This is a petition filed with the Bureau of Indian Affairs requesting custody review. Garrett took the document, reading carefully. His expression shifted. This is legitimate, he said. No. Oswin stepped forward. You can't let them take my children. They're not your children, Running Bear said coldly. They're the blood of White Elk Woman. They belong with the people. This is outrageous, Marshal. You can't allow. Actually, Garrett said slowly, I have to. Treaty law supersedes territorial law. If the tribe is claiming jurisdiction. He looked at Running Bear. What happens now? A hearing, before the tribal council. They will decide who has the right to raise these children. Running Bear's eyes found Silas. You are Silas Brennan. I am. The children speak of you with trust. You will be invited to present your case before the council. And if I lose, then they go to the tribe, where they will be safe, honored, and raised in their mother's tradition. His gaze shifted to Oswin. But they will never go to him. Oswin's face twisted with rage. This is a setup. You can't. We can, Running Bear said. And we will. The hearing is in 7 days. Be there, Mr. Brennan. Bring the children. He mounted his horse. Oh, and Mr. Fletcher, if any harm comes to these children before the hearing, treaty law also covers retribution. We have long memories and longer reach. He rode away. Oswin turned on the marshal. You're just going to let him? My hands are tied, Garrett said. Treaty law is federal. I can't override it. He looked at Silas. 7 days. Keep them safe until then. I will. Garrett mounted up, gesturing for Chase and Oswin to follow. As they rode away, Oswin looked back once. His expression promised murder. When they were gone, Silas turned to the others. 7 days, he said. We have 7 days to prove I'm the best choice for these kids. How do you prove that? Beatrice asked. I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out. That night, Eliza couldn't sleep. She kept getting up, checking windows, jumping at every sound. Finally, Silas sat down beside her. Talk to me. What if the tribe doesn't choose you? Her voice was small. What if they take us away? Then you'll be with people who loved your mother, people who will keep you safe. But I don't know them. I know you. Silas put his arm around her. 7 days from now I'm going to stand in front of that council and tell them the truth. That I'm a broken old man who lost everything and doesn't deserve a second chance. But that I'll love you and Samuel with everything I have left. And if that's not enough..." His voice caught. "Then at least I tried." Eliza buried her face in his shoulder. "I want to stay with you." "I want that too, kiddo, more than anything." "Then make them see. Make them understand you're our papa now." Papa. There was that word again. And this time, instead of breaking him, it made him stronger. 7 days felt like 7 minutes and 7 years all at once. Silas spent every waking hour trying to prepare. But how do you prepare to prove you deserve something you know you don't? He wasn't Eliza and Samuel's father. Wasn't their blood. Wasn't even a good man, just a broken one who'd failed his own family and was desperately trying not to fail again. On the second day, Miguel brought news from town. Oswin had put a bounty out $500 for anyone who could bring him the children before the hearing. $500 was more money than most men in the territory saw in 2 years. "He's getting desperate," Miguel said. "That makes him dangerous." "More dangerous than he already was?" Beatrice asked. "Much more. Desperate men don't think straight. They take risks." Miguel looked at Silas. "You need to move the children. Hide them somewhere Oswin can't find them. Where he owns half this valley, has eyes everywhere." "The reservation," Beatrice suggested. "Running Bear would protect them." Silas shook his head. "If I hide them, it looks like I don't trust the process, like I'm afraid of what the council will decide." "Aren't you?" "Terrified, but I have to show up, have to face this head on." He loaded his rifle, checking the chamber. "Besides, I won't give Oswin the satisfaction of seeing me run." That night they came. Silas woke to the smell of smoke, not wood smoke from a fireplace, thick, acrid, choking smoke. He rolled out of bed, grabbing his rifle, and ran to the window. The barn was on fire. Flames climbed the walls, orange and hungry, casting dancing shadows across the snow. And in the firelight, Silas could see them, 6 men on horseback circling the property. Waiting. He ran to Eliza's room, shook her awake. "Get up, get Samuel, we need to move, now." She came awake fast, no questions, just action. Grabbed her brother and followed Silas to the main room where Miguel and Beatrice were already up, armed and watching the windows. "The barn?" Miguel asked. "Gone. And they're waiting for us to run out. Classic siege tactic. Smoke us out, pick us off when we flee." "Then we don't flee." Silas checked his ammunition. 20 rounds. Not enough for 6 men. "We make them come to us." "Silas," Beatrice said quietly, "there are children here. If the cabin catches..." "It won't. The barn's separate. Stone foundation. Nothing to spread to." He hoped he was right. Prayed he was right. A voice called from outside. Bull Hennigan again. "Last chance, Brennan, send out the girl and the baby, and we'll let you live." Silas moved to the window. "Go to hell. Your choice." Bull laughed. "Boys, light 'em up." Torches arced through the air, trailing fire. 2 hit the cabin roof. 1 shattered a window, landing inside near the kitchen. Miguel stomped it out, while Beatrice grabbed blankets, beating at flames. Eliza screamed. Samuel was crying. The smoke thickened. Silas fired through the window. Saw one of the riders jerk and fall. 5 left. Return fire shattered glass, wood splintering. Miguel shot back his pistol, cracking sharp in the confined space. Another rider went down. 4 left. But the cabin was burning now. Real burning. Flames crawled up the walls, eating wood, consuming everything. The heat became unbearable. "We have to get out!" Beatrice shouted over the roar. "Back door!" Silas grabbed Eliza and Samuel. "Miguel, cover us!" They ran for the back of the cabin. Silas kicked the door open, and immediately bullets tore through the frame. He pulled back, shielding the children. They were pinned. Then through the smoke and chaos, Silas heard a sound that made his heart leap. Bells, dozens of them, and hoofbeats. Lots of hoofbeats. The ranchers were coming. Bull heard it too. He cursed, shouting orders. Fall back! Fall back! But it was too late. Riders poured into the clearing. Tom Fletcher, Danny Walsh, Sarah Chen, and at least 20 others. They surrounded Bull and his men, guns drawn. "Drop your weapons!" Tom shouted. Bull's remaining men looked at each other, looked at the guns aimed at them, dropped their rifles. Bull didn't. He wheeled his horse trying to run, but Danny rode him down, tackling him into the snow. The fight was over. Silas stumbled out of the burning cabin, Eliza and Samuel in his arms, Miguel and Beatrice right behind. Tom ran to help, taking Samuel, while Sarah grabbed blankets to wrap around them. "You okay?" Tom asked. Silas couldn't speak, just nodded, coughed, tried to breathe through the smoke in his lungs. The cabin burned. Everything he owned, furniture, clothes, his son's few remaining possessions, his wife's wedding ring gone, consumed by fire. But the children were alive. Eliza was alive. Samuel was alive. That's what mattered. Marshal Garrett arrived an hour later with deputies drawn by the smoke and commotion. He took one look at the scene, the burned cabin, the captured men, the crowd of armed ranchers, and his face went hard. "Someone better start talking." Tom stepped forward. "These men tried to murder Silas Brennan and the Morrison children. We stopped them." Garrett looked at Bull, who sat in the snow with his hands bound. "That true?" Bull spat blood. "We were just following orders." "Whose orders?" "You know whose." "Say it." Bull hesitated. Then, seeing he had nothing left to lose, "Oswin Fletcher. He paid us $500 each to burn them out and bring him the kids. Dead or alive, he said. Didn't matter which." The crowd went silent. Garrett's jaw worked. "You're saying Oswin Fletcher ordered the murder of 2 children? And anyone protecting them? That was the deal? You got proof of this payment?" Bull laughed bitterly. "You think Oswin pays in bank drafts? It's cash, always cash. But you can ask the others, they'll tell you." Garrett looked at the other captured men. One by one they nodded. Confirmed Bull's story. The marshal turned to his deputies. "Arrest them, all of them. Attempted murder, arson, conspiracy." He paused. "And send word to Judge Harrison. Tell him we need him here immediately. We're filing charges against Oswin Fletcher." A cheer went up from the crowd. But Silas didn't join in. He was too tired, too overwhelmed. He sat in the snow, Eliza pressed against his side, Samuel in his lap, and watched his home burn to ash. Beatrice sat down beside him. "You can stay at my place. I've got room." "Thank you." "Silas." She put her hand on his shoulder. "You did it. You beat him." "Did I?" "He's still free. Still has money and power. And in 5 days I have to stand in front of a council and convince them I'm worthy of these kids." He looked at the ruins of his cabin. "What do I even have to offer them now? No home, no money, nothing." "You have yourself," Miguel said, joining them. "And sometimes that's enough." But Silas wasn't sure. Wasn't sure of anything anymore, except that he was so damn tired of fighting. The hearing was set for noon on the 7th day, held at the Tribal Council Lodge on the reservation. Silas arrived early with Eliza and Samuel, his hands shaking despite his best efforts to stay calm. He wore his only good shirt borrowed from Tom and had tried to make himself presentable, but he still felt like a beggar, asking for something he had no right to claim. Running Bear met them at the entrance. "The council is ready. You will stand before them and answer 3 questions. Answer truthfully from your heart, and you may be granted custody." 3 questions. It is our way, 3 truths to measure a man's spirit. Running Bear's expression softened slightly. "I cannot tell you what to say, but I can tell you this: the council values honesty over eloquence. They will see through lies, no matter how prettily spoken." Silas nodded. Looked down at Eliza, who clutched his hand tight. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Me too." "What if they say no?" Then I'll know I tried everything I could. And so will you. He knelt down, meeting her eyes. But no matter what happens, I need you to know something. These last 7 days, having you and Samuel with me, have been the best days I've had in 5 years. You gave me a reason to live again. And I'll always be grateful for that. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I love you, Papa. His throat closed. I love you too, kiddo. They entered the lodge. It was warm inside, heated by a central fire. 7 elders sat in a semicircle, their faces weathered and wise. Behind them stood members of the tribe watching silently. And off to one side, looking furious and trapped, stood Oswin Fletcher with his lawyer. Running Bear addressed the council in Blackfoot, his words flowing like music. Then he switched to English. We gather to decide the fate of 2 children, Eliza Morrison and Samuel Morrison, whose mother was White Elk Woman's daughter. 2 men claim the right to raise them, one by blood and law. He gestured to Oswin. One by choice and courage. He gestured to Silas. The eldest of the council, a woman with white hair and eyes like flint, spoke. Her voice was soft, but carried weight. Oswin Fletcher, you are the children's uncle. By white man's law they are yours. Why should we honor that law when it has rarely honored us? Oswin stepped forward, his lawyer beside him. With respect, honored elders, I am family. These children need stability, education, opportunity. I can provide that. I have resources, connections, a proper home. You have blood on your hands, the elder said quietly. Oswin froze. We know what you did to John Morrison. We know what you did to his wife. Your money may buy silence in the white man's world, but here... She shook her head. Here truth speaks louder than gold. That's slander. It's justice. She looked at Silas. Silas Brennan, step forward. Silas approached the fire, feeling every eye on him. His heart hammered. The elder studied him for a long moment. Then, the first question, why do you seek to raise children who are not yours by blood? Silas took a breath. Let it out slow. Because 5 years ago I lost my son. Thomas. He was 6 years old. Got sick with fever, and I couldn't save him. My wife died a month later from grief, and I've been half dead myself ever since. His voice cracked. When Eliza came to my door with Samuel, she didn't just need help. She needed someone to see them, to choose them. And something in me, something I thought was dead, woke up. These kids don't replace what I lost. They can't. But they help me keep living. They give me a reason to wake up in the morning. And maybe that's selfish. Maybe I need them more than they need me. But I'm asking anyway. I'm asking for the chance to be their father. Silence. The elders conferred quietly. Then the old woman nodded. The second question. What will you give these children that another man cannot? Silas thought about his burned cabin, his empty pockets, everything he'd lost. Nothing, he said honestly. I have no money, no home anymore, it burned, no fancy education or connections. All I have is time and love and a promise to keep them safe, no matter what it costs me. He looked at Eliza, who was crying silently. I can't give them everything, but I can give them everything I have. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure they know they matter, that they're wanted, that they're loved. Another long pause, more conferring. The elder's expression remained unreadable. The third question. What truth drives you? What really brings you here? This was it, the question that mattered most. Silas closed his eyes, saw his son's grave, saw his wife's empty chair, saw 5 years of failure and regret. Because I failed my son, he said, his voice breaking. I couldn't save him, couldn't protect him, couldn't do the one thing a father's supposed to do, keep his child alive. And every day since I've wondered if I could have done something different. Something more. If I'd acted faster, been smarter, tried harder. He opened his eyes, tears streaming now. I can't bring Tommy back. Can't undo what happened. But I can save these children. I can give them the life my son never got to have. And maybe if I do that, maybe I can forgive myself for failing him. The lodge was completely silent. Then the old woman stood. The other elders stood with her. Silas Brennan, she said, you speak of failure, but we see only truth. You admit your brokenness. You do not hide behind pride or pretense. And you understand something many men never learn, that strength comes not from being whole, but from continuing, despite being broken. She looked at Oswin. You offer wealth and status, but these are hollow gifts from a hollow man. This is outrageous. Oswin's lawyer stepped forward. You can't simply— We can, the elder said, and we do. By the authority granted under treaty law, we award custody of Eliza Morrison and Samuel Morrison to Silas Brennan. She smiled small, but genuine. We name you Broken Shield, the man who admits his cracks, yet protects others. May you raise these children with the same courage you showed in saving them. Eliza screamed a sound of pure joy and ran to Silas, throwing her arms around him. He caught her, lifting her off the ground, and she was laughing and crying at the same time. We're yours, she sobbed. We're really yours. Silas couldn't speak, could barely breathe. He just held her, this fierce, broken girl who'd walked through hell and chosen him. Chosen him. Samuel, held by Beatrice, reached his tiny arms out, and Silas took him too, holding both children against his chest, while the tribe cheered, and Oswin raged impotently in the background. Running Bear approached, placing his hand on Silas's shoulder. You are family now, to them and to us. Welcome, Broken Shield. Thank you, Silas managed. Thank you. But Oswin wasn't finished. He pushed past his lawyer, his face twisted with rage. This isn't over. I'll appeal, I'll go to federal court, You'll do nothing. Marshal Garrett entered the lodge, 2 deputies behind him. Oswin Fletcher, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder of minors, arson, and fraud. You can't prove any of that. Actually, I can. Bull Hennigan's testimony. The ledger Miguel Santos provided, and 20 witnesses who watched your men try to burn down Silas Brennan's cabin with children inside. Garrett's expression was stone. You're done, Fletcher. Oswin lunged, not at Garrett, but at Silas. His hand went to his belt, pulling a knife that gleamed in the firelight. If I can't have them, you won't either. Time slowed. Silas saw the blade coming, saw Oswin's face contorted with hate, and knew he couldn't block it, not while holding the children. Then Running Bear moved. Fast, fluid. His hand caught Oswin's wrist, twisting hard. The knife clattered to the floor. In one smooth motion, Running Bear swept Oswin's legs and drove him face first into the ground. Enough. Running Bear's voice was quiet, deadly. You have dishonored yourself, your family, and these children. Be grateful we don't invoke old justice. It would be far less merciful than what the white man's law will give you. Garrett and his deputies hauled Oswin away, still screaming threats and curses. But his voice faded as they dragged him outside, and soon there was only the crackling of the fire and the sound of Eliza crying against Silas's shoulder. It's over, Silas whispered. It's really over. Not over, Running Bear corrected. Just beginning. Now comes the hard part, learning to be a family. Silas looked down at Eliza and Samuel, at these 2 children who were his now. Legally. Officially. Permanently. His children. The weight of it hit him, the responsibility. The fear, the overwhelming love that came with it. He'd gotten what he'd asked for. Now he had to figure out how to be worthy of it. That night, staying in Running Bear's home on the reservation, Silas lay awake listening to Eliza and Samuel breathe in the next room. Steady. Safe. alive. He thought about his son, about Tommy's grave on the hillside, about the 5 years he'd spent wishing he could go back and do things differently. He couldn't go back, couldn't change the past, but he could move forward, could build something new from the broken pieces of his old life, could be a father again. Not to replace Tommy, never that. But to honor him, to live the way Tommy would have wanted him to live, with purpose, with love, with hope. Eliza appeared in the doorway, silhouetted against the firelight from the main room. "Can't sleep?" Silas asked. "Too happy to sleep." She crossed to him, sitting on the edge of his bed. "Papa." "Yeah. Thank you, for not giving up, for fighting for us." "Thank you for giving me something to fight for." She lay down beside him, small and warm, and within minutes she was asleep, trusting him completely. Silas put his arm around her, holding her close, and finally, for the first time in 5 years, he felt peace. Tomorrow, they'd figure out where to live, how to rebuild, what came next. But tonight, they were together. They were safe. They were family. And that was enough. Morning came too soon and brought reality with it. Silas woke to Samuel crying, and Eliza already up trying to quiet him. She looked exhausted, shadows under her eyes, and Silas realized she probably hadn't slept much at all, despite what she'd said about being too happy. "Here." He took Samuel, who immediately stopped crying, and grabbed at Silas's beard. "You look tired." "I kept thinking he'd disappear if I fell asleep, that I'd wake up and we'd be back with Uncle Oswin." She rubbed her face. "Stupid, I know." "Not stupid. Natural." Silas bounced Samuel gently. "Takes time to believe you're really safe. Your body doesn't catch up to your mind right away." "How long did it take you?" "After Tommy died." The question caught him off guard. Eliza had a way of doing that, asking things most people wouldn't dare. "Still working on it," he admitted. "Some days I wake up and forget he's gone. Reach for him before I remember." He met her eyes. "Grief's like that. It doesn't follow rules or timelines. You just learn to live around it." "Will I always miss Mama and Daddy this much?" "Yeah, but it gets easier to carry, like a weight you get stronger holding." She nodded, processing that. Then, "What do we do now?" "Now." Silas looked around Running Bear's home, warm and welcoming, but not theirs. "Now we figure out where we're going to live." The answer came faster than expected. That afternoon, Tom Fletcher arrived with news and an offer. "The town council met this morning," he said. "We took up a collection, got enough to rebuild your cabin and then some." He handed Silas a leather pouch heavy with coins. "Should be close to $800. Silas stared at the pouch. "I can't accept this." "Sure you can. You stood up when the rest of us were too scared. Least we can do is help you get back on your feet." "Tom, besides half of it's from the tribe, Running Bear said something about it being tradition to help family build homes." Tom smiled. "You got yourself adopted twice in 1 week, Silas. That's got to be some kind of record." Silas's throat tightened. "Tell everyone thank you." "Tell them yourself. We're starting construction tomorrow. Whole town's coming out to help." Tom clapped him on the shoulder. "Welcome home, Silas." The rebuilding started at dawn. Silas counted 40 people who showed up, ranchers, townspeople, tribal members, even some of the logging crew who'd quit Oswin's operation. They came with lumber tools, strong backs, and determination. Miguel directed the construction with the efficiency of a man who'd built 100 structures. Danny Walsh and his crew handled the heavy lifting. Beatrice organized food and supplies. Sarah Chen kept track of materials and costs. And Eliza helped wherever she could, fetching tools, holding boards, learning. She worked with fierce concentration, like building this cabin was the most important thing she'd ever done. Maybe it was. By sunset, they had the frame up. By the next night, walls. By the third day, a roof. Silas watched it take shape, something tight and painful loosening in his chest. His old cabin had held memories of loss. This new one, built by the hands of people who'd stood with him, felt like something different. Felt like hope. On the fourth day, Eliza found him sitting on what would become the porch, staring at the structure. "It's bigger than the old one," she observed. "Has to be. There's 3 of us now." She sat beside him, quiet for a moment. Then, "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "Are you scared of being our papa?" Silas considered lying. Considered giving her the answer she probably wanted to hear, but he'd promised himself he'd always be honest with her, even when it hurt. "Terrified," he admitted. "I failed Tommy. What if I fail you?" "You won't. You don't know that." "Yes, I do." She looked at him with that fierce, damaged eye. "You already saved us. Everything else is just details. Pretty important details. Raising kids. Keeping you fed, clothed, educated. Teaching you right from wrong. Helping you grow up into good people." He rubbed his face. "I don't know if I remember how to do any of that." "Then we'll figure it out together." She took his hand. "You don't have to be perfect, Papa. You just have to try." "When'd you get so wise?" "When I had to grow up fast." She squeezed his hand. "But maybe now I can slow down a little. Be a kid sometimes, if that's okay." "That's more than okay. That's the plan." She smiled a real smile, the first one he'd seen, that reached her eyes. "Good. Because I'd really like to learn how to ride a horse. And maybe have a dog. And—" She stopped herself. "Sorry. That's too much to ask." "No." Silas pulled her close. "Ask for everything. Ask for the moon. You've earned it." That night, after everyone had gone home and the cabin was just walls and roof, but starting to feel like shelter, Silas lay awake in Running Bear's guest room planning. He'd need furniture, beds for the kids, a proper crib for Samuel, clothes, supplies. 100 things he hadn't thought about in 5 years. The weight of it pressed down on him. Not crushing exactly, more like responsibility finding its shape. He heard movement, looked up to find Running Bear standing in the doorway. "Can't sleep?" the older man asked. "Too much thinking." "Mind if I join you?" Silas shrugged. Running Bear entered, sitting cross-legged on the floor with the easy grace of someone comfortable in his own skin. "You're worried," Running Bear observed, "about being a father again. That obvious?" "I've seen that look before, on my own face when my daughter was born." He smiled slightly. 23 years ago, and I still remember the terror." "Does it get easier?" "No, just different." Running Bear studied him. "May I tell you something?" "Please." "In our tradition, there's a story about the broken pot. A woman had a beautiful pot that cracked down the middle. She was going to throw it away, but her grandmother stopped her. Said the crack let in light. Made the pot more useful, not less. Flowers could grow through it. Water could nourish roots through the crack that a whole pot couldn't reach." He met Silas's eyes. "You think your grief makes you weak. But the council saw truth. Your brokenness makes you strong. Because you know pain. You know loss. You know what matters. What if it's not enough? It will be. Because you also know love." Running Bear stood. "Those children don't need a perfect father. They need you. Exactly as you are." He left Silas alone with his thoughts and a small seed of something that felt like confidence. The cabin was finished in 7 days. Faster than Silas thought possible, but Miguel explained it wasn't just construction, it was community. People working together made everything faster, stronger, better. On moving day, Silas stood at the threshold holding Samuel while Eliza clutched his free hand. Their new home waited empty but full of possibility. "Ready?" he asked. Eliza nodded. Ready. They stepped inside together. The main room was open and bright with a stone fireplace Miguel had built himself. 3 bedrooms, one for Silas, one for Eliza, one for Samuel when he was old enough. A real kitchen with a proper stove donated by Sarah Chen. Windows that let in light without letting in cold. Furniture was sparse. They'd have to build more, but there was a table chairs, 2 beds, and a cradle that Tom Fletcher had carved by hand. It's perfect, Eliza whispered. Silas looked around at this space built by dozens of hands paid for by a community that barely knew him a month ago, and felt something break open in his chest. Not pain this time. Something else. Gratitude. Yeah, he managed. It really is. That first night in the new cabin, Silas made dinner beans and cornbread, nothing fancy. Eliza set the table like she'd been doing it her whole life. Samuel sat in his cradle, watching everything with wide eyes. They ate together at the table, the 3 of them, and it was so normal it almost hurt. This was what family looked like, what it felt like, what he'd been missing for 5 years. After dinner, Eliza helped clean up while Silas got Samuel ready for bed. The baby fought sleep, fussing and squirming until Silas started humming. A song his mother had sung to him, that he'd sung to Tommy, that he'd thought he'd forgotten. Samuel went still, listened, then slowly, gradually drifted off. Silas laid him in the cradle, covering him with a quilt Beatrice had made, and just watched him breathe for a while. This tiny person who depended on him completely, who trusted him to keep him safe, fed, loved. The responsibility was enormous, the risk of failure even bigger. But standing there watching Samuel sleep, Silas realized something. He'd been so afraid of failing again that he'd forgotten what success looked like. It wasn't perfection, wasn't never making mistakes. It was showing up, trying, loving them even when he was scared. And that maybe he could do. Papa, Eliza appeared in the doorway. Will you teach me to read? You don't know how? Uncle Oswin said school was a waste for girls. Said I only needed to know enough to keep house and stay quiet. Her jaw set. I want to learn everything. I want to read and write and do numbers and everything. Silas smiled. Then we'll get you books. I'll teach you what I know and we'll figure out the rest together. Really? Really? You're smart, Eliza. Smarter than me, probably. No reason you shouldn't have every opportunity. She threw her arms around him, hugging tight. I love you, Papa. I love you too, kiddo. He held her, this fierce girl who'd survived hell and came out stronger. Now get to bed. Morning comes early, and we've got work to do. What kind of work? Living work, the best kind. She went to her room, and Silas heard her moving around, settling in, then quiet. He sat by the fire, listening to his children sleep, and felt peace settle over him like a blanket. Not perfect peace. He was still scared, still worried, still grieving what he'd lost, but peace nonetheless. A knock at the door broke the silence. Silas grabbed his rifle. Old habits died hard, and opened it cautiously. Marshal Garrett stood on the porch, hat in hand, looking tired. Evening, Silas. Mind if I come in? News about Oswin. That and other things. Silas let him in, offering coffee. Garrett accepted gratefully, settling at the table. Oswin's been formally charged, Garrett said. Murder, conspiracy, fraud, attempted child trafficking. He's being held without bail until trial. He sipped his coffee. His lawyer's trying to make deals, but the prosecutor's not interested. Says he's got enough evidence to hang Fletcher 3 times over. When's the trial? Month, maybe 2. Judge wants it done right, thorough investigation, all witnesses available. Garrett looked at him. You'll have to testify. So will Eliza. Silas's jaw tightened. She's been through enough. I know, but her testimony's crucial. She's the only one who can speak to the abuse, the threats, what she saw the night her mother died. Garrett's expression was sympathetic. I'll make it as easy as possible, but she has to do it. I'll talk to her. There's something else. Garrett set down his cup. Bull Hennigan and his men, they're willing to testify against Oswin in exchange for reduced sentences. Said Fletcher's been using them for dirty work for years. Beatings, intimidation, arson, even murder. They've got names, dates, details. Why come forward now? Because they're looking at hanging otherwise. And because... Garrett smiled slightly. Because what you did standing up to Fletcher gave them courage. Showed them he's not invincible. That good men can win. I'm not a good man. You're a better man than most, and you're a symbol now whether you like it or not. People in this valley have been scared of Oswin Fletcher for years. You broke that fear. He stood. Just thought you should know, and thought you should know that no matter what happens at trial, you've already won. You got the kids. That's what matters. After Garrett left, Silas sat by the fire, thinking about trials and testimony, and making Eliza relive her worst memories. He hated it. Hated that she'd have to stand in a courtroom and recount every beating, every threat, every moment of terror. But maybe Garrett was right. Maybe telling the truth publicly, having people believe her, having justice happen, maybe that would help her heal. He'd ask her in the morning. Let her decide. She'd earned that much. The weeks that followed fell into a rhythm. Silas worked the land trying to rebuild what the fire had taken. Eliza helped with chores and started learning her letters. Samuel grew, getting bigger and stronger every day. They had good days and hard days. Days when everything felt right, and days when Silas wondered what the hell he was doing trying to raise two kids. But they kept going, kept trying, kept choosing each other. One afternoon, Miguel arrived with a surprise, a horse. Not young, not fancy, but gentle and patient. For Eliza, Miguel said, every kid should learn to ride. Eliza's face lit up like sunrise. She approached the horse, slowly reaching out to touch its nose. The horse nickered softly, accepting her. What's her name? Eliza asked. Whatever you want it to be. Eliza thought for a moment. Then, Hope. Her name's Hope. Miguel grinned. Perfect name. Silas spent the next week teaching Eliza to ride. She was fearless, catching on fast, and within days she was trotting around the property with confidence. Watching her ride, hair flying, laughing freely, Silas saw the child she should have been all along, the one she deserved to be. One evening, as they sat on the porch, watching sunset paint the sky, Eliza said, Papa, can I ask you about Tommy? Silas tensed. He didn't talk about Tommy, not with anyone, but he'd promised Eliza honesty. And maybe it was time. What do you want to know? What was he like? Silas closed his eyes, remembering. Curious, always asking questions. He wanted to understand everything, how things worked, why people did what they did, what made the world turn. He smiled despite the pain. Drove me crazy sometimes, all those questions. But I loved it too. Loved seeing him think. Do I remind you of him? No, you're different, tougher, braver. Tommy never had to face what you faced. He looked at her. But you both have this same, I don't know how to describe it. This light. This fierce determination to keep going no matter what. I wish I could have met him. He would have loved you. Would have been a great big brother to you and Samuel. They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars appear. Finally, Eliza said, I don't want to replace him. You don't. You couldn't even if you tried. Silas put his arm around her. Tommy will always be my son. Always have that place in my heart. But there's room for you too. Heart's funny that way. It doesn't run out of space. Just expands to hold what it needs to. Good. She leaned against him. Because I need you to love me. Even on the days I'm difficult. Especially on those days. She laughed, and the sound filled the evening air with something that felt like healing. The day before the trial, Silas sat Eliza down. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. We can tell the marshal you're not ready. But then Uncle Oswin might go free. Maybe. Or maybe they have enough evidence without your testimony. Eliza shook her head. I need to do it. Need to say it out loud. All of it. She met his eyes. I've been scared of him my whole life. If I don't speak now, I'll be scared forever. You're sure? I'm sure. She took a breath. Will you be there in the courtroom? Every second, right beside you. Then I can do it. The trial took 3 days. Silas sat in the front row close enough for Eliza to see him far enough not to interfere. He watched her take the stand, watched her raise her hand and swear to tell the truth, watched her face Oswin Fletcher and tell the world what he'd done. She didn't cry, didn't falter, just spoke clearly and honestly about beatings, threats, starvation, and watching her mother die. Oswin's lawyer tried to shake her testimony, suggesting she was confused, traumatized, making things up. But Eliza held firm. I know what I saw, she said. And I know what he did. He killed my parents and tried to kill me and Samuel. That's the truth. When she finished, the courtroom was silent. Even the judge looked shaken. Silas testified next, describing everything from the night Eliza came to his door to the fire that destroyed his cabin. Then came Miguel Bull Hennigan, Beatrice Tom Serra, and a dozen others. By the end, the case against Oswin Fletcher was airtight. The jury deliberated for 2 hours, came back with a verdict guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced him to hang. Oswin screamed as they dragged him away, hurling threats and curses. But his voice faded, and soon there was only silence. Outside the courthouse, Eliza stood in the sunshine, looking lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted. It's really over, she said. It's really over, Silas confirmed. What do we do now? Silas thought about their cabin, their land, their life waiting for them. Thought about all the days ahead, ordinary days full of chores and lessons and growing up. Now, he took her hand. Now we go home. They rode home in the wagon Miguel had lent them Eliza, sitting beside Silas, while Samuel dozed in a basket between them. The late afternoon sun turned everything gold, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the world seemed peaceful. But peace, Silas was learning, wasn't the absence of struggle. It was learning to live with what remained after the storm passed. 3 weeks after the trial, on a morning that started ordinary, everything changed again. Silas was fixing the fence line when he heard hoofbeats approaching fast. He grabbed his rifle, still a reflex, and turned to see Marshal Garrett riding hard, his face grim. "What's wrong?" Silas called out. Garrett dismounted, breathing hard. "Oswin Fletcher escaped last night." The words hit like a physical blow. "What? Someone bribed the guards, cut him loose around midnight. By the time we realized he had 6 hours head start." Garrett's jaw was tight. "I've got men tracking him, but Silas, he's coming for you. For the kids, he's got nothing left to lose." Silas felt ice flood his veins. "How long until he gets here?" "Hard to say. Could be hours, could be days. But he's coming." "Then I'll be ready." Garrett grabbed his arm. "You can't fight him alone. Let me station deputies here." "No time for that. You said yourself he's got hours on you." Silas looked toward the cabin where Eliza was teaching Samuel to stack wooden blocks. "I need to get them to safety." "The reservation. Running Bear will protect them." "That's 20 miles. If Oswin's already close, then you fight." "But Silas, the man's got nothing to lose. That makes him more dangerous than ever." After Garrett left to organize a manhunt, Silas gathered Eliza and Samuel. He tried to keep his voice calm, tried not to let the fear show, but Eliza saw right through him. "It's Uncle Oswin, isn't it?" Her face went pale. "He escaped." "Yeah. He's coming here." "Probably." She clutched Samuel tighter. "What do we do?" "We prepare, we survive, and if he shows up..." Silas checked his rifle. "I handle it." "Papa, you can't fight him alone. He'll have men with him." "I know, that's why I'm sending you and Samuel to Running Bear." "No." Eliza's voice was firm. "I'm not leaving you." "Eliza." "I'm not leaving." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I already lost Mama and Daddy. I'm not losing you too. Silas knelt in front of her, putting his hands on her shoulders. Listen to me. The only way I can fight is if I know you're safe. If I have to worry about protecting you while defending the cabin, we all lose. But if you're with Running Bear, then you'll be alone. I've been alone before. I know how to handle it. He brushed tears from her face. Please, Eliza, let me do this. Let me protect you the way I couldn't protect Tommy. She sobbed, throwing her arms around his neck. You come back to us. You promise me you come back. I promise. He held her tight, memorizing the feel of her small body against his, just in case. Now go pack, just essentials. You leave in 10 minutes. Eliza ran inside. Silas called for Miguel, who'd been staying nearby since the trial, helping with repairs. Within minutes, Miguel had a plan. I'll take them to the reservation. Fast ride, we can make it in under 3 hours. He loaded his pistol. What about you? I fortify the cabin. Set up defenses. Wait. You're one man, Silas. If Oswin brings even 5, then I make sure I'm harder to kill than they expect. Silas met his eyes. I'm not running, Miguel. This ends here, one way or another. Miguel clasped his shoulder. Then I'm coming back. Soon as the kids are safe, I'm riding back with every man who'll follow. May not be time for that. Then you better stay alive until I get here. Eliza emerged with a small bag Samuel bundled in her arms. She looked at Silas with eyes too old for her face eyes that had seen too much loss already. Be careful, she whispered. Always am. Liar. She kissed his cheek. I love you, Papa. Love you too, kiddo. Both of you. He touched Samuel's head, the baby grabbing his finger with surprising strength. Now go, and don't look back. He watched them ride away until they disappeared over the ridge. Then he turned to face the cabin, his home, his sanctuary soon to be his battlefield, and got to work. He boarded up windows, positioned rifles at strategic points, filled buckets with water in case of fire, loaded every weapon he owned, set traps along the approaches, nothing lethal, just obstacles to slow attackers down. By sunset, he was as ready as he'd ever be. One man against however many Oswin brought. Terrible odds. But Silas had learned something in the past month. Sometimes terrible odds were all you got, and you fought anyway, because the alternative was giving up. And he was done giving up. Night fell. Silas sat in the dark cabin, rifle across his lap, listening to every sound. Wind through the trees. An owl hunting. His own heartbeat loud in his ears. He thought about Tommy. About the night his son died. How helpless he'd felt watching fever consume that small body. How he'd failed to save him. He wouldn't fail again. The attack came at midnight. No warning, just sudden thunder of hoofbeats and the crash of breaking wood as they hit the front door. Silas fired through a gun port he'd cut earlier, his shot taking down the first man through. The others scattered, taking cover, returning fire. Glass shattered. Bullets punched through walls. Silas moved from position to position, firing from different angles, making them think he had more men inside. A torch sailed through a broken window. Silas kicked it back outside before it could catch. Another torch. Another. They were trying to burn him out again. But this time, he was ready. The water buckets put out flames fast. He'd soaked the walls earlier, they wouldn't burn easy. Brennan. Oswin's voice cut through the chaos. Send out the children and I'll let you live. They're not here, Silas shouted back. Gone. Safe. Oswin cursed. Then you die for nothing. Rather die for nothing than live for nothing. Already spent 5 years doing that. More gunfire. Someone tried the back door. Silas dropped him with a single shot. Someone else tried a window. Same result. But there were too many. 6 men at least, maybe more. And Silas was running low on ammunition. He reloaded, hands steady despite the fear. Thought about Eliza safe on the reservation. About Samuel sleeping in Running Bear's home protected by the tribe. About how even if he died tonight, he'd done what he set out to do. He'd saved them, given them a chance. That had to be enough. Then he heard something that made his heart leap. Hoofbeats again, but different. Coming from the north. Lots of them. Oswin heard it too. What the hell? Riders poured into the clearing. Miguel led them. Tom Fletcher, Danny Walsh, Beatrice Hollis, Sarah Chen, and at least 20 others. They came with guns blazing surrounding Oswin's men, cutting off escape. "Drop your weapons," Tom shouted. "You're outnumbered." Oswin's men looked at each other, looked at the ring of armed ranchers, started dropping guns, all except Oswin. He stood in the middle of the clearing, pistol in hand, his face twisted with rage. "This isn't over," he screamed. "I'll kill you all. You'll do nothing." Running Bear emerged from the darkness, moving silent as smoke. "Your time is finished, Oswin Fletcher. You have no authority here. This is white man's land. And you are alone." Running Bear gestured to the captured men. "Your hired guns have abandoned you. Your money means nothing. Your power is gone. All that remains is a broken man filled with hate." Oswin's pistol swung toward Running Bear. Silas burst from the cabin, rifle up, but Running Bear was faster. He moved like water, disarming Oswin before the man could fire, driving him to his knees. "Mercy," Oswin gasped. "Please, I'll leave. I'll disappear. Just let me go." "You want mercy?" Silas approached, rifle still aimed. "You who showed no mercy to John Morrison, no mercy to his wife, who beat a child and tried to sell a baby." His finger tightened on the trigger. "Give me one reason why I shouldn't end you right now." Oswin trembled. Because you're not a killer. You're a good man." "I'm not a good man. I'm a broken man who's tired of your evil poisoning this valley." Silas took a breath. "But you're right about one thing. I'm not a killer." He lowered the rifle. "Marshal Garrett's waiting in town. You'll face justice the legal way. And this time you'll hang for real." Silas stepped closer. "But here's the thing, Oswin. You don't get any more of our days. You don't get to live in our thoughts, our fears, our nightmares. You're nothing now. Less than nothing. And we're going to forget you ever existed." He turned his back on Oswin, the ultimate dismissal, and walked away. Marshal Garrett arrived with deputies at dawn. They took Oswin and his men into custody, this time with heavy chains and armed guards. As they led him away, Oswin tried one last time to threaten Silas, but his words were empty, powerless. He was finished. Silas watched them disappear down the road, then turned to find his cabin surrounded by friends. Miguel clapped him on the back. Tom handed him a cup of coffee. Beatrice checked him for injuries, like a worried mother. "You did it," she said. "You really did it." "We did it," Silas corrected. "All of us." "Still," Tom said. "You're the one who stood first. We just followed." "Then keep following. This valley's going to need good people to rebuild after Fletcher's gone. People willing to stand up for what's right. Like you. Like all of us." Running Bear approached, his expression approving. "Broken Shield, you chose mercy over vengeance. This is true strength." "Didn't feel strong. Felt like I wanted to kill him." "Wanting and doing are different. You wanted revenge but chose justice. That takes greater courage than pulling a trigger." Running Bear smiled. "The children are safe, waiting for you. Eliza has not stopped asking when you will return." Silas felt exhaustion crash over him. "Then I better not keep her waiting." The ride to the reservation took 3 hours. Silas dozed in the saddle, trusting his horse to follow Miguel. When they arrived, Eliza was standing outside Running Bear's home, watching the horizon. She saw him and ran. "Papa!" Silas dismounted, just in time to catch her. She hit him like a small cannonball, sobbing and laughing at the same time. "You're okay. You're really okay. Told you I'd come back. I didn't believe you. I thought, shh, I'm here. I'm fine. We're all fine." He held her tight, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling her heart beat against his chest. "It's over, Eliza. Really over this time." "Uncle Oswin?" "In custody. Going back to jail where he'll stay until they hang him. And this time, I'm going to make sure it happens." She pulled back, searching his face. "You didn't kill him." "No." "Why not? After everything he did." "Because killing him wouldn't have fixed anything. Wouldn't bring your parents back. Wouldn't erase your scars." Silas touched her face gently. "Mercy's harder than revenge, but it's also what separates us from people like him." Eliza thought about that, then nodded, understanding settling in her eyes. Samuel appeared in the doorway, held by one of the tribal women. He saw Silas and reached out, making demanding noises. Silas took him, and the baby immediately grabbed his beard, pulling hard enough to hurt. "Missed you too, little man." Silas kissed his forehead. "Missed you both so damn much." That night they stayed on the reservation. Running Bear insisted, saying Silas needed rest before the journey home. They sat around the fire, Silas, Eliza, Samuel, Running Bear, and several tribal elders sharing food and stories. One elder, an ancient woman whose name translated to Laughing Water, studied Silas for a long time. Finally she spoke, her voice like wind through grass. "Broken Shield. Do you know why we gave you this name?" Running Bear said, "It's because I'm broken but still protect others. That is part of truth. But there is more." She leaned forward. "A shield that has never been broken is untested, may shatter under real blow. But a shield that has broken and been repaired, that shield knows its weaknesses, knows where it must be reinforced. That shield is stronger than it was before." "I don't feel stronger." "Because you measure wrong." She tapped his chest. "Strength is not here in muscle and bone, is here in heart that breaks but continues beating, in spirit that suffers but continues loving." Silas looked at Eliza, at Samuel, sleeping in his arms. "These kids made me strong, not the other way around." "Then you learned the greatest lesson." Laughing Water smiled. "We do not save others. We save each other." The next morning they prepared to return home. Running Bear walked them to their horses, his hand on Silas's shoulder. "You will always have family here," he said. "Always have home among the people. Thank you. For everything. Thank yourself. You did the hard work, choosing love over fear, mercy over hate, hope over despair." Running Bear looked at Eliza and Samuel. "These children will grow strong, knowing their mother's people, knowing their father's courage. I'm not courageous, I'm just alive," Running Bear finished. "When you could have stayed dead inside, that is the truest courage of all." The ride home was quiet but peaceful. Eliza sat in front of Silas on the saddle Samuel secured in a carrier on his back. The sun was warm, the air clean, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, Silas felt content. Not happy exactly. There was still too much grief, too many scars. But content. At peace with where he was and who he was with. They crested the final ridge, and the cabin came into view. Their home whole and waiting, rebuilt by the hands of friends. Smoke rose from the chimney. Someone had started a fire for them. Probably Beatrice, who'd promised to stock the kitchen. "We're home," Eliza said softly. "Yeah." Silas smiled. "We are." That evening, after unpacking and settling in after dinner and baths and getting Samuel to bed, Silas and Eliza sat on the porch watching stars emerge. The valley spread below them, peaceful and beautiful, and Silas thought about how much had changed since that night in the blizzard. How he'd changed. "Papa?" Eliza's voice was sleepy. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "Are you glad that we came to you?" Silas looked at this remarkable girl who'd survived hell and somehow remained kind, who'd chosen him, a broken stranger, to trust with her life and her brother's life. "Glad doesn't begin to cover it," he said. "You two saved my life, Eliza. Gave me a reason to keep living when I'd forgotten why life mattered." "We saved each other then." "Yeah, I guess we did." She yawned, leaning against him. That's good. That's how family should work. Family. The word didn't hurt anymore. Didn't carry only loss and grief. Now it meant something different. Something new growing from broken ground. A week later, official word came. Oswin Fletcher had been hanged for his crimes. The trial had been swift, the evidence overwhelming the verdict unanimous. He died without dignity, cursing until the trap dropped. Silas didn't attend. He was too busy living. Living meant teaching Eliza to read and write. She learned fast, hungry for knowledge, devouring every book they could find or borrow. Within months, she was reading at a level beyond her years. Living meant watching Samuel grow. First words. First steps. First time calling Silas Papa in a clear, sure voice that made Silas's throat close with emotion. Living meant building things. A larger barn. A proper chicken coop. A swing hanging from the old oak tree where Eliza could fly through the air laughing. Living meant community. Dinners with Miguel and his family. Helping Tom Fletcher with his cattle. Trading goods with Sarah Chen. Attending ceremonies on the reservation where Eliza learned about her mother's people and her heritage. Living meant grief still, because Tommy and his mother would always be gone. But now the grief was softer, tempered by new love. Silas visited their graves regularly, telling them about Eliza and Samuel, about how life had surprised him with second chances. He liked to think they approved. Years passed. Eliza grew into a fierce, intelligent young woman who spoke 3 languages, could ride like the wind, and had Running Bear's gift for seeing through to truth. She talked about becoming a teacher someday, helping other children who'd been through what she had. Samuel grew into a curious, gentle boy who asked questions constantly, just like Tommy had. Sometimes it hurt, that similarity. But mostly, it comforted Silas, like his son's spirit lived on somehow in this second child he'd been given. On Eliza's 16th birthday, they had a party. Half the valley came. There was food, music, laughter. Watching her dance with Danny Walsh's son, Silas felt pride and terror in equal measure. His little girl was growing up. Later that evening, after everyone had gone, Eliza found him on the porch. "Thank you," she said. "For today, for everything." "You're welcome, though I think I should be thanking you." "For what?" "For choosing me that night, for trusting me with your life." He looked at her, no longer the broken child who'd stumbled through a blizzard, but a strong young woman with her whole future ahead of her. "I know I'm not your real father." "Stop." She grabbed his hand. "You are my real father. Biology doesn't make family. Love does. Choice does. Showing up every day does." Her eyes, both healed now, the damaged one, as bright as its twin, fixed on him with fierce certainty. "You chose me when no one else would. You fought for me, protected me, loved me. That makes you my papa, my real papa." Silas pulled her into a hug, this girl who'd taught him how to live again. "I love you, Eliza Martha Brennan." "I love you too, Papa." Samuel appeared in the doorway, 9 years old now and already tall. "Are we doing hugs I want in?" He barreled into them, and they stood there on the porch, the 3 of them, this family built from broken pieces, holding each other while the stars came out overhead. The following spring, Running Bear visited with news. The tribal council wanted to honor Silas formally, make him an adopted member of the Blackfoot Nation. It was rare, he explained, reserved for those who'd shown exceptional courage and character. "I don't deserve this," Silas protested. "The council disagrees." Running Bear smiled. "As do I. You took 2 children with tribal blood and raised them to know both worlds, the white world and the Blackfoot world. You honored their mother's memory. You taught them strength through example. This is worthy of recognition." The ceremony was held during the summer solstice. Silas stood before the council in traditional garments they'd made for him, feeling awkward and humbled. Running Bear spoke in Blackfoot, the words flowing like poetry, and though Silas didn't understand all of it, he understood enough. He was being welcomed, accepted. made family. The eldest elder, Laughing Water, still alive and sharp at 93, placed a hand on his head and spoke. We name you Broken Shield, who admits his wounds, yet protects others. Who chose love, when hate was easier. Who shows us that the broken places are where the light gets in. She smiled, her ancient face creasing with joy. Welcome, son of the people. Welcome home. Silas looked at Eliza and Samuel, both dressed in traditional clothing, both beaming with pride. Looked at the community around him, tribal members and ranchers, native and white, all gathered to celebrate this moment. He thought about the man he'd been 5 years ago. Alone. Broken. Half dead from grief and guilt. That man had heard a child crying in a blizzard and made a choice. One choice that changed everything. And now look where that choice had led. To family, to healing, to a life full of purpose and love. Thank you. He managed, his voice rough with emotion. Thank you for giving me a reason to be whole again. That night back at the cabin, Silas tucked Samuel into bed and listened to Eliza practice her reading in the next room. He sat on the porch with coffee growing cold in his hands, watching fireflies dance in the darkness, and felt grateful. Grateful for the blizzard that brought Eliza to his door. Grateful for her courage and Samuel's resilience. Grateful for the community that stood with them. Grateful for Running Bear's wisdom and Laughing Water's blessing. Grateful to be alive. To be living instead of just existing. The door opened. Eliza emerged, sitting beside him like she'd done 100 times before. What are you thinking about? She asked. How lucky I am. Lucky, Papa, you lost your son, your wife, your home burned down. You nearly died fighting Uncle Oswin. And I got you and Samuel, got to be a father again, got to watch you grow from a scared little girl into this amazing person sitting next to me. He looked at her. Yeah, I lost a lot, but I gained more, and that makes me lucky. She was quiet for a moment. Then, you know what I think? What? I think broken hearts just have more room to hold love. Silas stared at her. Where'd you hear that? From you, years ago. You said it to me once when I was scared about loving you. Scared if I let myself love, I'd lose you like I lost Mama and Daddy. Had he said that? He couldn't remember, but it sounded right. Felt true. Then I guess we're both right, he said. Hearts break, but they also mend. And sometimes they come back stronger. Like broken shields, Eliza added with a smile. Like broken shields. They sat in comfortable silence, father and daughter, watching the night deepen. Inside, Samuel called out in his sleep, a happy sound, not afraid. Just dreaming. And Silas thought about how family wasn't about blood or law or papers signed by judges. It was about who you'd walk through a blizzard for, who you'd fight impossible odds to protect, who you'd choose day after day no matter how hard things got. It was about showing up, trying, loving even when you were terrified of losing again. That was family. That was everything. 5 years ago, a widower heard a child crying in a storm and made a choice that saved 3 lives, the girl's, the baby's, and his own. Now that widower had a daughter who called him Papa, a son who looked at him like he hung the moon, a community that called him friend, a tribe that called him brother. He'd walked through fire and come out whole. Not unburned, the scars remained, always would, but whole nonetheless. And that was more than enough. That was everything. Silas Brennan, once broken shield, sat on his porch with his daughter beside him and his son sleeping inside, and knew with absolute certainty that he was home. Finally, truly, completely home.